Willow Creek, a name that evokes a sense of peace and serenity, a place where time seems to stand still and the worries of the world fade away. A small town nestled amidst rolling hills surrounded by lush greenery and the gentle embrace of nature. The landscape is a painter's dream, with every season bringing a new palette of colors. Life moved slowly here, peaceful, serene. The streets were quiet, with only the occasional sound of a bicycle bell or the laughter of children playing. The town square was a gathering place where people walked leisurely, enjoying the simple pleasures of life. The air was always fresh, carrying the scent of pine and earth. The forests surrounding the town were a sanctuary for those seeking solace and a connection with nature. The rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds provided a soothing soundtrack to daily life. The people were friendly, their smiles genuine, their laughter warm. In Willow Creek, everyone knew each other, and there was a strong sense of community. Neighbors helped one another and friendships were cherished. Days were filled with simple pleasures, whether it was a leisurely stroll through the town, a visit to the local bakery for freshly baked bread, or an afternoon spent reading a book under the shade of a tree. Life in Willow Creek was about enjoying the little things. Fishing in the crystal-clear river was a favorite pastime. The river, with its sparkling waters, was teeming with fish, and it was not uncommon to see families spending their weekends by the water, casting their lines and sharing stories. Picnics under the shade of ancient oaks were a cherished tradition. Families would gather with baskets full of homemade treats, spreading out blankets and enjoying the cool shade of the towering trees. The laughter of children and the hum of conversation filled the air. Evenings were quiet, the sky ablaze with stars. The lack of city lights made the night sky a breathtaking spectacle. Stargazing was a common evening activity, with people marveling at the constellations and the occasional shooting star. Willow Creek was a sanctuary, a place untouched by the chaos of the outside world. It was a haven where one could find peace and tranquility, a place where the soul could rest and rejuvenate. No one expected it to change. No one could have predicted the horror that awaited. The tranquility of Willow Creek was about to be shattered, and the town would never be the same again. The first sign was subtle, a whisper, a fleeting glimpse, easily dismissed. It was as if the wind itself carried secrets, secrets that only the most perceptive could catch. The whispers seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once, echoing through the corridors and slipping through the cracks of old creaky windows. Old Mrs. Hathaway swore she saw her husband. She had been sitting by the window knitting when she caught a glimpse of him in the garden. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it really be him? She rubbed her eyes, convinced it was a trick of the light, but the figure remained. He had died a year ago. The pain of his loss was still fresh, and seeing him again, even as a fleeting shadow, brought a mix of sorrow and hope. She clutched the old photograph of them together, her fingers tracing the edges of the frame, as if trying to hold on to the memory of him. She saw him tending their garden, the garden he had loved so much, where they had spent countless hours together. The sight was both comforting and unsettling. She watched, frozen in place, as the ghostly figure moved with the same grace and care he always had. A cold shiver ran down her spine. The air around her seemed to grow colder, and she felt a presence, as if someone was standing right behind her. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. The room was empty, yet the feeling of being watched lingered. Then, young Billy Carter saw his twin sister playing in the woods. He had been exploring, as he often did when he saw her familiar figure among the trees. His heart leaped with joy, but confusion quickly followed. She was supposed to be miles away, at summer camp, but she was away at summer camp. He called to her. She didn't turn. His voice echoed through the woods, but she continued to play, oblivious to his calls. He ran towards her, but the closer he got, the more distant she seemed. She just vanished into thin air. One moment she was there, the next, she was gone, as if swallowed by the forest itself. Billy stood there, breathless and bewildered, staring at the spot where she had been. The woods were silent, save for the rustling of leaves. These strange occurrences were dismissed as tricks of the light or figments of an overactive imagination. People whispered about them in hushed tones, but no one took them seriously. It was easier to believe in rational explanations than to confront the possibility of the supernatural, but a seed of unease had been planted. The whispers in the wind grew louder, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. The town, once peaceful and quiet, now held an air of mystery and fear. People began to wonder if there was more to these whispers than mere imagination. The line between reality and the supernatural blurred, leaving everyone questioning what they truly believed. The peace was shattered, the whispers turned into screams, the fleeting glimpses became undeniable horrors. It started with the Miller family, found brutally murdered in their home. Their faces pale, distorted, frozen in expressions of pure terror. Then came the discovery, the most chilling detail. The victims, they weren't alone. Beside each lifeless body lay an exact replica, their eyes empty, soulless, staring into nothingness. These weren't just corpses, they were doppelgangers, evil twins. Sheriff Michael Dean, a man of logic and reason, refused to believe the rumors circulating around town. He had always prided himself on his rational mind, dismissing anything that couldn't be explained by science or common sense. Doppelgangers? It was absurd, the product of mass hysteria, he thought. Stories of people seeing their exact doubles, often with sinister intentions, were nothing more than urban legends to him. But then, one fateful night, everything changed. He saw it. With his own eyes, he witnessed the impossible. A figure standing across the street, identical to him in every conceivable way. Every detail, every scar, every nuance of his appearance was mirrored perfectly. It smiled, a chilling, mirthless smile that sent shivers down his spine. His blood ran cold as he realized the gravity of the situation. He knew this was no hallucination. This was real. The figure was not a figment of his imagination, but a tangible, living entity. Instinctively, he reached for his gun, his trusted companion in times of danger. But in the blink of an eye, the figure vanished, leaving him standing there, weaponless and vulnerable. He was left there, shaking, alone in the deserted street. The weight of what he had just experienced pressed heavily on his mind. The logical part of him struggled to make sense of it, but deep down, he knew that his life would never be the same again. The nightmare had only just begun. Section 5. The Doppelgangers mark. The murders continued, each more gruesome than the last. The victims all shared a horrifying similarity, their faces, stripped of all features, eyes gouged out, mouths sewn shut. As if their own reflections had stolen their identities, fear spread like wildfire, consuming the town. No one dared to venture out alone, trust eroded, everyone suspected everyone. Section 6. A town shrouded in fear. Willow Creek became a ghost town, the streets, once bustling with life, now deserted. The laughter of children, replaced by an eerie silence. People barricaded themselves indoors, afraid to sleep, afraid to wake. The fear, it was palpable. It choked the very air they breathed. Every reflection, every shadow, held the potential for terror. The townspeople were trapped, in their own homes, in their own minds. Section 7, The Hunt for Answers. Sheriff Dean. Haunted by what he had seen, he pored over every report, every witness statement, searching for a pattern, an explanation. The doppelgangers. Where did they come from? What did they want? He had no answers. Only more questions. He consulted old texts, legends, myths, desperate for anything that could shed light on this nightmare. The truth remained elusive. Section 8. A Glimmer of Hope. An old Native American woman, a recluse living on the outskirts of town. She contacted the sheriff claiming to have knowledge of the doppelgangers. She spoke of an ancient legend, a malevolent entity dwelling in the nearby caverns. It fed on fear, on despair. She said the entity could only be banished by a ritual, a sacrifice. The sheriff listened, his heart heavy with dread. Was this their only hope? Section 9. Descent into Madness. The sheriff gathered a small group, volunteers desperate to end the nightmare. They ventured into the caverns, armed with torches and fear. The air grew colder, the darkness oppressive. Whispers echoed through the caverns, mocking them, taunting them. The group stumbled upon a chamber, walls adorned with strange symbols. In the center, an altar stained with blood. Section 10. The Price of Truth. The ritual began. The air crackled with energy. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on grotesque forms. The entity was near. The sheriff felt a presence, cold, malevolent. It whispered to him, promising power, immortality, in exchange for his soul. He hesitated, torn between duty and desire. Then he saw them, the faces of the victims, their eyes pleading. He knew his choice. Section 11. Echoes of Terror. The ritual was complete, the entity banished, but not without a price. The sheriff gone, vanished, leaving behind only his badge. The doppelgangers, they disappeared along with the sheriff. Willow Creek was safe. but the terror lingered. The townspeople, scarred, forever changed. They knew evil could lurk even in the most peaceful of places. The nightmare was over, or was it just beginning?